Sustain kinetic damage to a target emits a shockwave that damages any nearby target. First thing to note is that it pretty much stacks with like any damage buff you kind of get. You can stand in the well and you get the damage increase, becoming radiant as well, standing in a bubble. Pretty much just anything that gives you damage buff, this will stack with. Alrighty, so let's actually dive into what the perk does. The way you activate it is you have to hit 6 shots on an enemy. It doesn't have to be headshots, it can just be body shots if you want to. But it has to also do damage. So if a hobgoblin goes immune and you hit him 6 times, that's not going to count. You have to actually do damage to that enemy. It also can't be a vehicle or like a taken blight, for instance. That doesn't count either. And those 6 shots have to be on the one enemy. Missing a shot means you have to restart the entire chain again. And switching targets also means you have to restart the chain again. Before I actually move on to the damage numbers, I just want to point out that Major Spect, Minor Spect, and Boss Spect, they all work with this perk, so if you want to use those, you could. So if you've been paying attention throughout the entire video and watching like the actual clips I show, you'll see that the numbers that pop up are like very all over the place. And that's because I couldn't really actually find a solid base number. I think the most was like the 2,999. That was the most consistent one I was hitting. But aside from that, I think what was the problem was I was testing most of the stuff on higher difficulty stuff, and which was Neomuna, and I did like one Defiant Battleground. On Neomuna, things are like 10 above you or something, and that's causing the damage to be lower than it's supposed to be. And then it's a lot higher in the Defiant Battleground I was playing. But the problem with this perk that I ran into a lot was you can't proc it if you're going against lower level enemies. So your best option is to actually just go against like GM, maybe level, like this might be a GM perk or something like that. So I couldn't really tell you guys all like the actual damage numbers. Aside from the 2,999, that was the base. And then you saw the Minor Spect, Major Spect, and Boss Spect. The best way I would describe this perk is a harder proccing Explosive Payload. Because even in Explosive Payload, you can actually just use that anywhere and it would do that passive damage. Here you have to get those 6 shots, and I even have a clip of just me trying to kill lower level enemies, and I can't even proc the perk because the enemies are dying in like 2 to 3 shots, so I can't even... I think the actual timer for it is a bit too unforgiving to actually be useful. Again, this might be just a endgame perk where you just pump it full of champions and just let that passive damage kind of do its thing. But even then, if they're not in the center of that little crater it creates, that little explosion crater, it doesn't do much damage, and even the AoE to the other adds around it don't do much damage. They pretty much have to only be in the center. And I even have a little, like another clip of just a Hydra. I shot at a Hydra, and all it did was back up, and its shield just blocked up the middle of the shot, pretty much, or the little crater that I was creating, and it was just blocking it with the shield. So they pretty much have to be in the middle center to actually do any damage. So I would actually just not recommend this perk. It's not that great unless you really need that passive damage for endgame stuff, but they're just better perks. Like Explosive Payload would just be a better option, in my opinion. But that's pretty much all I got. Actually, another thing to note, I just remembered while looking at the footage, it can destroy moths. Do with that information what you will. But I'll see you guys next time.